From our series Fascinating Norway, we are happy to show you today the fjord. The counties Aurland, Lærdal and Årdal are located at the inner Sognefjord, the largest, longest and deepest fjord on earth. Today we want to make you acquainted to this magnificent landscape of natural beauty. Perhaps one of the most beautiful holiday paradises in Europe. Enjoy unforgettable cultural and leisure attractions such as the Flåm Railway, the smallest stave church, the currently longest tunnel on earth, the romantic and nostalgic Lærdal, and not to forget the fantastic Norwegian Wild Salmon Center. We will also show you the famous Borgund stave church, picturesque farmhouse museums, and the highest waterfall in Norway. However, we will not forget to visit 2 first-class hotels and 2 top-class camping sites. Facilities for sports and leisure time will not be neglected. Let us begin high up on top of the mountains where you find the little river Lærdalselv making its way through the rocks. Kongevegen, the old royal road near Maristuen, is in many places still well kept, which makes it possible to follow its course. There are many goats all over Norway, and you can certainly buy the famous geitost, goat's cheese. We are now following the course of the Lærdalselv on its stony way to the sea, and now arrive at Borgund. Borgund boasts the world's best kept stave church. It was built in the year 1150. As one of the most typical and most beautiful Norwegian stave churches, it has remained more or less unchanged until today. The church is dedicated to Apostle Andrew. It is richly ornamented and shows a plethora of dragon's heads. Inside you find a pulpit from the year 1550. The altar is from the middle of the 17th century. Directly beside the old church is the new Borgund church, which was built in 1868. It is still regularly used for church services. At the site where the Lærdalselv has gnawed its way through the hard rocks for millions of years, we meet, a short way after Borgund, the Vindhellavegen. The hiking path originates from 1793 and was renovated between 1840 and 1863. The Vindhellavegen is a popular destination, not only for wanderers, but especially for mountain bike riders. The attractive holiday cottage camp Egumgard is located near Steinklepp. You can either rent a holiday cottage or stay some time with your camper van or mobile home. Here you will find the typical Norwegian cottages in various sizes and price categories. They are fully equipped with everything needed for agreeable holiday. Egumgard also sports a small museum. There you will find lovingly restored furniture and farm implements dating from the hard times the farm was founded. Salmon fishing has always been highly popular at the Lærdalselv, and little footbridges have been built here at the rocks for the fishermen since time out of mind. The old farm Galdane is located close to Husum. It was built in the 16th century and was inhabited until 1947. Nowadays, a farmer comes round at times to look after the precariously situated farm on the steep hillside. The river widens and finally reaches its destination at the delightful village of Lærdal. The waters now join the Lærdalsfjord, one of many subsidiaries of the mighty Sognefjord. Holiday.
Veien til Borgen stavkirke. Ja, skal se, du nå her, og så kjører du E16 oppover mot Borgen, cirka en halv time. Så Borgen stavkirke på venstre side av veien. Ja, tusen takk. Jo, bare hyggelig.
The Lindström Hotel is an excellent hotel situated in Lærdal, which we would like to recommend. The Lindström Hotel has achieved a perfect blend of both old and new architectural styles. The bedroom areas have remained in an elegant 18th century style, and the interior of the common areas have been preserved and maintained thanks to the efforts of Knut Lindström. In the new part of the building there is a modern reception area and a dining room. The exquisite buffet bears witness to the high standard of this excellent hotel. In 1971, as much as 161 buildings in the old town centre, the Gamle Øyri, were listed as being under protection. Gamle Øyri has been awarded many prizes for its beautiful and joint architectural styles of the 18th and 19th centuries. Originally, the protected houses were mostly beach houses and homes of the wealthy people, but some were also stores, hotels, boathouses and repair shops. The Lærdal Norwegian Telegraphy and Postal Museum is of the same building style. Incidentally, it also houses an interesting art gallery. The museum will give you an informative look at the history of communication by telegraphy and telephone, and the history of Norway's postal service. But now we return to the river Lærdalselv. The Lærdalselv is known and famous by anglers around the world and is often referred to as the king of all the Norwegian salmon rivers. In earlier times, between 5 and 10 tons of salmon and sea trout were caught here per year. Atlantic salmon, which pass through the fjord on their way upriver into the Lærdalselv, is still caught in the old tradition by using artificial flies. Unfortunately, the fish are currently carrying a parasite, so for the next few years only trout fishing upriver will be permitted. The Norwegian Wild Salmon Center, which is located near the river, was opened in 1996. The salmon leap encourages the salmon to swim towards the aquarium windows, enabling you to experience the wild Salmosala in its natural environment. The excellently equipped museum has a shop selling a variety of products. Here you can get acquainted with the life story of the Atlantic salmon and the traditions relating to the fish and to the way it is caught. Relief maps, films and other presentations round off the exhibition. The didactic, methodical and scientific style of the presentations and displays make the museum a worthwhile attraction. You can see, for example, how to tie a salmon fly. The comprehensive collection of artificial flies, as well as a display of interesting and well-maintained fishing tackle, turn this museum into a mecca for fly fishermen from all over Europe. The old pictures show the wealth of fish of bygone days and the pride taken by the anglers in their catch. By the way, the Norwegian king is also a fishing enthusiast who loves fishing the Lærdalselv. But there's also lots of fun. The fishing simulator will give you the opportunity to put your angling skills to the test. An ideal way to round off your visit would be to sample some of the tasty salmon specialties in the restaurant. Whether you have come to Lærdal with a tent, a camper van or mobile home, or if you are just on the lookout for a holiday home, then this campsite is the best choice you could possibly make. In 2002, Lærdal Ferie- og Fritidspark received a richly deserved award for being the best camping site in Norway. There is more than enough space on the flat, generous meadows, and all roads are tarmacked for easy access. The sanitary installations are of highest European standard. See for yourself. The floors and walls are tiled and the buildings are heated. Everything is provided for to make your stay as comfortable as possible. The site also has a number of holiday homes and apartments which are suitable for large families or groups. The reception, kiosk, cafe and restaurant form the hub of the site and round off the list of site amenities.
God dag. Har du informasjon om Flåmsbanen?
Ja.
Tusen takk.
At the baker's you can buy fresh bread buns every day. pictures and you can forget the old stories of Norway being a country that can only be enjoyed from the inside of a warm winter coat. In the harbor you will see a wide variety of boats. Why not hire one of the campsite boats and go fishing on the fjord? Children are also well catered for. The fun they can have is not just limited to climbing and sliding. They can also drive around in pedal cars, which are for hire from the campsite warden. The mostly calm fjords are ideally suited for canoeists. If you haven't bought your own canoe, you can hire one here. The camping site has its own tennis court. What could be better than an exciting tennis match in the middle of such a beautiful landscape? Or how about an afternoon spent swimming in the fjord at the campsite's very own beach? Today, Lærdal celebrates its traditional Morella feast. There you find homegrown fruits and, naturally, the morello cherries, which thrive in the mild climate of the fjord.
Hej. Ja.
Tak skal du have.
The Morella feast is traditionally combined with the youth sports meeting.
En liten pause nå på noen få minutter, og så setter vi i gang med kampen.
The excursion boat Sognefjord, which will take you on a cruise around the fjord, can be hired by either individuals or groups. Or you can join another group. Ask at the campsite or in the tourist information office. Seen from sea level, the mountains appear even more monumental, and this unique view of the huge fjord will never be forgotten. Now we'll take a stroll through the woods, high up into the mountains above Lærdal. Up here, breathtaking panoramic views of the valley, town and fjord await you. And why not jog up? It's a very demanding fitness trail set in magnificent surroundings. In summer, berries, lichen, moss and flowering plants can be found in abundance. Lærdal is the ideal starting point for longer day trips on or around the Sognefjord. Visit the Nygardsbreen, a glacier arm of the Jostedalbreen, the largest European land glacier, and join a guided glacier tour. Take a look at the stave churches of Ørnes and Koipanger and pay a visit to the local fjord museum, or make a shopping tour to Sogndal. Balestrand, with its picturesque Swiss-style wooden houses, is also just a short distance away. And in Vik, on the south side of the fjord, the statue of Fridtjof can be seen, which was a present from the last German Kaiser. The splendid stave church of Hopperstad is also a must. You should dedicate one day of your holiday to a day trip to Bergen, where there are so many things to do. Enjoy the obligatory ride on the Fløyenbahn, visit Gamle Bergen, the old town center, or walk over the Tyske Bryggen. And, last but not least, visit the famous Bergen fish market. Opened in 2000 by King Harald, the Lærdals tunnel, which is 24.5 kilometers, is currently the longest tunnel in the world. The passage is free of charge. It connects Lærdal with Aurland and quite considerably shortens the travelling time to Bergen. You'll need at least 20 minutes to travel through. In order to prevent car sickness, the tunnel is separated into 4 sections and the monotony is interrupted by 3 blue-lit rock caverns. As you can see, fish are also pursued in the waters of the Aurland River. The village of Aurland lies on a charming hillside overlooking the Aurland Fjord. The Otternes Museum of Local History and Culture can be found on the road between Aurland and Flåm. The museum, which was once a farm that is still partially worked, consists of 27 buildings, the oldest dating from the 17th century. In the first week of July, the museum is busy. Traditional costumes are worn and demonstrations are given on the dyeing of cloth, the baking of flatboard, the brewing of beer and how to smoke sausages. Inside the buildings, many old items and utensils give you a good idea as to how hard life was in the old days. We are now leaving Otternes, high above the fjord, driving through Aurland and up the famous snow road to even higher regions. This pass is 45 kilometers long, and before the Lærdal tunnel was built, was the only road between Aurland and Lærdal. Summit lies at 1,309 meters above sea level, and even in summer there will often be snow. The pass is therefore only open between the 1st of June and the 15th of October. Oh, by the way, good brakes on your car are an absolute necessity if you decide to travel along this route. Up here is seemingly unending, bizarre, but at the same time fascinating moonscape stretches in all directions. After we pass the watershed, the rivers tumble, cascading wildly into the Lærdalsfjord. Back in Lærdal harbour, we'll hire a boat from the campsite and go fishing on the fjord. Even the young anglers will have great fun with this popular Norwegian sport. To the great delight of the anglers, a shoal of herrings has entered the fjord. Now they are all busy to secure their share of tasty fish. Today we are taking the car ferry from Lærdal to Kaupanger on our way to Gudvangen. The ferry glides over the smooth Lærdalsfjord and crosses the Sognefjord to Kaupanger, where more cars drive onto the ferry's car deck. We are now heading west, over the mighty Sognefjord, before the ship turns to the south and enters the Aurland fjord. This ferry trip is an ideal way for every tourist to experience the breathtaking landscapes which surround the fjord. Such scenes, which can only be properly appreciated when viewed from the fjord itself, will grip you with such intensity that they will never be forgotten. After a while, the ferry turns again to the west and into the Nærøy fjord. The Nærøy is the narrowest fjord in the world, and here the surrounding scenery becomes markedly more dramatic. We are now passing isolated small farmsteads, and the question arises, how can people live in such solitude? Perhaps nature's adversities are more than compensated for by the heavenly landscape and the feeling of complete and utter freedom. The ship has now entered Gudvangen Harbour, where it unloads and is then reloaded for the return journey. We continue by car through a toll-free tunnel on our way to Årdal on the Aurland Fjord. In this quaint but romantic village, you will find the smallest stave church in Scandinavia. It was built in 1147 and provides seating for 40 people. For centuries, this small community has lived from fishing and farming. They are also breeding goats, which explains why you will find a bakery in the village with a cellar for ripening goat's cheese. Leif Inge Årdal keeps up old traditions and greets his guests with a song.
Han gikk seg i vea skog, hei fara i vea skog. Der satt ei kråke i lunden og gol, hei fara, halturil, altura. Nå får du smake på den milde, hvite Årdalsgeitosten. Han da lite mogen og mild i smaken.
You can sample and buy the yellow geitost and the brown brunost cheeses, as well as many more local specialties. At the end of the Aurland Fjord is the lively village of Flåm. This community is meeting point and traffic junction for people, cars, buses, trains and ships. As in other towns, the tourist information office is where everything comes together. Large luxury liners and ferries are regular visitors to Flåm Harbour. From the harbour, you can make short trips to Bergen by speedboat. While you wait for the arrival of the famous Flåm Railway, you can enjoy the agreeable surroundings of the highly original Flåm Railway Cafe. The Flåm Railway is a masterpiece of Norwegian engineering ingenuity. Here, in the Flåm Railway Museum, you acquaint yourself with the fascinating history of the train and the line from Flåm to Årdal. Most of the construction time was spent digging the tunnels, which were carved from the rock using muscle power alone. The Bergen train, which has connected Oslo and Bergen since 1909, urgently required a connection to the Sognefjord, and in 1920 construction of the branch line was started. In 1940, steam trains ran on the line for the first time, and in 1944 the Flåm Railway became the first electrified railway line in Norway. A journey from Flåm to Lærdal is an unforgettable experience on one of the most beautiful and spectacular railway lines in the world. The train has to master a 20-kilometer stretch of track and overcome a height difference of 863 meters. In order to meet the necessary safety level, the train has 5 independent brake systems. There are 8 stops, 20 tunnels, many bridges and a number of very tight bends with a radius of only 130 meters. For the whole journey, the train needs roughly 60 minutes. Many tourists traveling on the train hire a trekking bike in Flåm in order to cycle the return journey from Lærdal along a charming downhill track. At Berekvam, there's a place where the 2 trains meet and pass each other. The railway pioneers and migrating workers, who were called rallare, made the railway you can see here on your right. As a rather unique service, the train stops at the Kjosfossen waterfall to allow passengers to take photographs. When you see the Reinungavatnet lake shining like a blue pearl, then you will know that the train will soon arrive in Lærdal, where it meets the Bergen train. We are now back at sea level, and the sidearm of the fjord bears the name of the commune Årdal. The Årdal fjord ends in Årdalstangen. In the quaint harbour and the parks of the town, the Norwegians enjoy the summer days. And here we can recommend another beautifully situated camping site. The Årdalstangen Ferry Park has sufficient space for tents and camper vehicles of all kinds. Cottages in various sizes and price categories can also be hired. Or you could spend the night in the Hotel Klingenberg. This is the finest hotel in town and is also one of the leading hotels on the Great Fjord. The cuisine is excellent. so make sure you don't miss the large buffet. And in the evening have a nightcap in the well-stocked hotel bar. On the solitary and little developed north side of the Årdal fjord is Indre Årdal, an out-of-the-way ancient mill. We are going to visit Indre Årdal and drive along with the manager, Jakob Grosvik, from Årdalstangen over the mountains and through a very steep tunnel into the wooded fjord landscape beyond. You can also reach Indre Årdal by boat. And there's our old friend, the Sognefjord, bringing more tourists. The museum shows vividly the everyday life of the Årdals on the farm, which is now more than 200 years old. In the course of time, the fixtures and fittings have changed, allowing you to see the gradual change from a simple hard life to a modestly wealthy one. The wood and the sawmill, which was water-driven, was the original source of income for the Årdals. Felling the trees of the vast forests, they would then cut them to size for the people around the fjord. Later, the Årdal mill was also used as a flour mill. From Årdalstangen we are now driving up into the mountains, via Øvre Årdal to Sletterustfjell, where Ole V rents out mountain and trekking bikes. In his off-road car, he brings us to a height of 1,000 meters on his own private road. From here you have an incredible view of the mountains and Øvre Årdal. This fabulous route is also well used by the more adventurous cyclists. Ole Vey seems to own half the countryside, and if you want to hire a fjell cottage, he's the man to see. This is Øvre Årdal's great outdoor swimming pool, and it's the perfect place for a fun day out with your children. Not far from here you'll find the beginning of the enchanting Lærdal with its impressive waterfalls. When you park your car, you'll be greeted by the first of these fantastic falls. But there's no time to linger, not today. We are going to hike to the Vettisfossen, the highest unregulated waterfall in Northern Europe. The track is about 7 kilometers long and mostly not very steep, making it a relatively easy walk. The stream, with the milky green water from the glacier, is our constant companion. As we walk, the huts become older and fewer, and we become gradually immersed in pure nature. The next larger track junction presents us with another imposing waterfall. After a hike of about 1.5 hours, we reach the Vetti farm. From here, the path becomes a little more adventurous, and we'll need at least another half hour until we reach our destination. Here you see nature in all its glory. Let the eye rove and enjoy the splendor around you. We have now reached the Vettisfossen. The roaring waters tumble down, 275 meters in free fall. It's an amazing sight, and we stand in awe before the elemental powers of nature. From time immemorial, the boundless waters flow through the great fjord into the sea. We have to say goodbye to you now, but we hope that through our presentation to have whetted your appetite for more. Come and experience the holiday paradise of the inner Sognefjord for yourselves.